Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you all to listen to how FSD integrates DDI validation into daily workflow. This presentation will mainly revolve around a DDI validator that my colleague Emil and I have been developing. I will start off by telling how this project got started, then Emil will talk about DDI validation in general, present the features of the validator, and illustrate the validation process. Following that, I will give you a tech demo and end with some remarks. So this project got started back in 2019 when we had a need for a DDI validator that was tailor-made for our needs and specification. One of the top priorities for the validator was that it needed to integrate flawlessly into our forthcoming web-based operational database. At the time of need, no applicable solutions were available because our previously used internal DDI validator was getting outdated and contained some technical debt. Also, it was written in Java, which is not part of our tech stack anymore. After careful consideration, it was decided that a new DDI validator will be developed, and the development began in early 2020 when Emil developed the backend, and it was launched into beta testing in mid-2021. Now Emil will talk about DDI validation in general.
Yep, hello. The manual DDI validation is a complicated process which is quite time-consuming and is quite error-prone for the human inspector. So, because the file must be checked against multiple different schemas and files, and the process consists of several steps as well. So, utilizing software to validate the DDI files is, in reality, the only feasible solution for any kind of sensible validation for the DDI files. The features for our DDI validator consist of, well, the well-found validation forms the basis for all validation because, well, you can validate something that is broken. And after that, we can move on to XSD validation. We use the EDDI2021 XSD for the first batch of XSD validation. And we have our own FSD XSD that is built on top of the DDI one. The FSD's own XSD has both quantitative and qualitative versions because we have different kinds of metadata files which have different fields based on if it's qualitative or quantitative. And then finally, there's the constant text validation. We have support for both English and Finnish texts, so we can check for common texts that there might be some typos in the commonly used texts, so we have some kind of checking for those as well. So the validation process, it starts with creating the DDI file, of course. You can start validating without a file. Then we pass the file onto the validator. After that, the DDI validator goes through all of its steps, so XSD validation, constant text validation, etc. Then we compile the results into a JSON format and send the results to the requesting computers. And finally, we can display the validation results for the end user.
So, the backend of our validator is a microservice written in Python, and the front end is a web service built with Pyramid framework and JavaScript. Now I will give you a tech demo and validate a couple of DDI files and demonstrate some error situations such as handling duplicate errors and receiving multiple errors from different XSD files. So here we have the validator itself. It's based on this single page. And first off, we have this area here where we can drag and drop a file or select by clicking this button here. I will have prepared 3 files for this demo, and we can start off with the first one. The selected file can be seen here, and it can be removed by clicking this cross icon. We have 2 settings. We have language and data type. The language mainly defines which constant text validation to use, and the data type determines which FSD's own XSD specification to use. Since this file is in Finnish and it's quantitative, we will just let these settings be as is. Now we can press the validate button and we will be taken to the results. It says that the DDI file passed the validation successfully. So on to the next file. Here we have some errors. The settings for this file are the same as well. So we can just press validate again. And now we're taken to the errors. The first off, we can see that the DDI file did not pass the validation. We have this error table here, which has 3 columns. First off, we have error message, then we have a location in the file and the validator type. If we focus on the error message first, we can see that the first error is to attribute foo is not allowed, and it is in line 78. Then we have the location here. The highlighted line is the one that caused the error, and we display a couple of lines before and after the error. Then we have the validator type, which is basically the type of validator. So in this case, it's EDDI2021 FSD, which triggered the error. And if we look at the second error, it's actually the same as the first one. And the reason why we're getting this error again is because this error has been triggered by our own XSD specification, which is derived from the DDI2021 XSD. But as you can see, we get these additional errors from our own XSD specification, such as to attribute event is required but missing on line 84. And we can see that it's here. And then we have the constant text validation error. It says that expected one of these. And then we got says the topic classification, and there's a typo. And it's on line 74. And by showing these errors, it's really easy to just see which line caused the error and go and fix it. So if we look at the third file and validate it, the settings are the same for this as well. We only get one unique error, but the thing here is that we get this tooltip icon. And if we hover over or click it, we can see that this error is repeated on lines shown here. Shown here. And then we have 769 suspended lines. So in total, we have 800 duplicate errors that are exactly the same as this. And they're basically on every row after this row 76. And this is how we handle the duplicate errors, so we don't need to display more than one, because we can just say that it's repeated. Yeah, this is basically the validator, and I will now give you some remarks about how we're going forward with this validator. So the validator will be updated and improved when needed, and we're going to implement a vocabulary term validation in the near future. The thing that's encouraging to see is that our validator has already proven to be really useful for us by spotting errors that our previously used internal validator didn't spot. That shows us that it was worth to develop this new one, and it's really useful for us. Now we'd like to receive some questions, and we'll try our best to give you answers.